1. Install Windows Server Backup features. We're going to back up a Windows 2008 server, and to do this we're going to need to add some Windows features. So we go to Server Manager, Features, and all I have here installed is Group Policy Management, so I'm going to right click and say Add Features. And I want to go down my feature list, and there's really several things I need. The Windows PowerShell, if I'm going to use the command line tools for backup and restore. So I need to install that, and I'm also going to go here where it says Windows Server Backup Features, and I'm going to want to add Windows Server Backup and the command line tools. And that'll give us kind of a complete set of tools for using Windows Backup and Restore. And I'm going to click on Next, and I'm going to click on Install. And installation succeeded, so I can click Close. And now it's installed. 2. Perform a simple backup. Now that we have the backup tool installed, let's go to Administrative Tools and select Windows Server Backup. When we do, notice it would give us any information of differential or incremental or full backups that have taken place. However, this is the first time we've run this tool, so nothing's there. I could choose to back up on a schedule for repetitive backups, and if I did, I could choose, say, full server backup. Next, I could choose the time of day or evening, say 11 p.m. More than once a day, I could choose 2 p.m. and 5 a.m. or something like that, or remove those accordingly. Now, I'm not going to do a schedule, but if you want to set that up, you can. I'm going to click on this option, Backup Once, under Actions. Because this is the first time I've run this tool on this server, the first option is grayed out, so I only have different options. I'll click Next. My options are I can choose a full server backup, and that way I can restore the full system state data and everything necessary to get the 2008 server operating system up and running, or I could choose Custom. Now, if I choose full, I'm going to need like a removable drive or a network share to back these things up to. If I were to continue to go on, it would tell me that I couldn't do that, and I'll show you. The reason is it's going to try to include all the volumes, but I want to back up to a local volume D, which you can do as long as it's separate from the system volume. Like I couldn't create the backup on the same volume as the system volume. However, I can include D because it's both the source and the destination. So if you watch, if I click Next, it'll flag it as an error. Alright, so backup destination is E, and then it'll tell me, hey, the selected volume is also included in the list of items to back up. Exclude this volume from the list of volumes to back up, or add another disk and retry. Okay, so you can't have both the same source and destination volumes. So in this case, I'm going, my only option would be to, like I said, I'd have to use a removable drive. I'd have to choose a remote shared folder, or I'd have to do a custom backup. So I'm going to go here and Next, and I just want to make sure that this volume here is unchecked. But I do want to enable system recovery, so I want to get all of this volume here. And I'm going to click on Next, and notice it'll tell me choose the type of storage for the backup. In this case, I'm going to choose the local volume. Next, Data, Next, and then in this case, it's going to use the volume shadow copy service to back things up. And notice my options here that I can choose. The VSS copy backup, which is recommended. Choose this option if you're using another backup product to backup applications that are on volumes included in the current backup. This option retains the application log files. And this would be for something like, if I were going to image this later with a product like Ghost. I can also do VSS full backup. Choose this option if you are not using any other backup product to back up your applications. And this is going to go and modify attributes on the files, like the archive bit, as far as clearing the application log files. So I'm going to choose this option because I may want to image this with Ghost. I usually keep Ghost images of most of my servers and workstations and things, so I can easily deploy them in the event of a catastrophic failure. I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Backup. And that will launch the wizard. We're off to see the wizard. And I'll kind of slide this over here so you can hopefully see some of the things going on under the description pane. Alright, and we'll kind of skip ahead in the video so you don't have to sit here and watch this thing for like 10 or 15 minutes to the end of the backup. 3. Restoring from a backup. Now that we've made a complete backup, let's look at several different restore options. So I type in Windows Server Backup, and I click on Recover. Notice my options are which server do you want to recover data from, this server or another. Of course, I want to choose the current one. There's the date and time. I can either choose to do an entire volume of files and folders. Now, this option I can't do if I'm currently booted into and running this operating system off of a mounted drive. I'd have to instead, boot up off the Windows 2008 Server DVD, and then I'd be able to recover system files. So we'll take a look at that option in a moment. Let's select files and folders, and I'm going to click on Next. And notice I could go down here, and in the image file, I could select different items and things that I want to back up. So let's say that my background images folder here. If I want to restore that, I'm going to click on Next. Notice it tells me one or more system file or folder items are selected for recovery. Recovery cannot be done to the original location. If I want to continue, I'm going to say OK. And I can throw it into a different location. And I'm going to put it into my D drive here. I'm going to click on Next to create copies so that I have both versions of the file or folder. Overwrite existing files with recovered files. Do not recover those files and folders. I'm going to click Next. And it will retrieve them from the archive file and decompress them. Okay. And now I will close Backup Manager and go here and here. And there are my files, recovered from the backup archive. 4. Performing a system state restore using command line tools. Let's look at using some of the Windows Backup command line tools now. And we want to do a system state restore. And for some reason, Microsoft decided not to allow you to graphically do this from within the tool, the graphical Windows Backup and Restore tool, but you can do it with a command line tool. And so Windows Backup admin is the command you want to use. And notice these are some of the options here that appear. I'm going to kind of drag this down some. And the first thing we want to do is look at whatever's in our log files, volumes and things that we backed up. So I would do wb admin and get versions because we'll need the version for our restore. And notice we can do a system state backup, a system state recovery. We can do a full recovery and backup with this tool. But I need to know this version identifier right here. Okay, the version identifier, 03062011. And so the tool I want to use is going to be wb admin, and I want to do start, and I want to do system state recovery, and then I need to specify the version, and then that would be dash version with the colon, and it's going to be this version label here. So 03 and 06 and 2011, and then dash 1402, so the date and time of the backup. When I do that, notice it'll say, hey, do you want to start the system state recovery operation? And I can choose yes. And it will start the process. And the system state data, it's like all of the files necessary for the system to boot and function the way that it should. So the registry database, startup files, boot files, things like that. So it's almost like if you were setting restore points in Windows 7 or Vista. Or XP, or if you had, if you rebooted, hit F8 and choose last known good configuration. But that information, that data that would normally be stored in system files and configuration files in the registry database, all of that is the system state data. And so that's what we're storing right now. And if we'd done something, we'd installed an application or some drivers that had, broken something or caused our system not to work the way it should, then restoring the system state data would bring it back to the original condition it was in, where the drivers were functioning and the configuration files and things were in that original condition where everything was working. So it's kind of a neat option, a very useful option. Alright, so we fast forwarded and skipped ahead there to save you some time on the video. But notice it says that log files successfully restored. In this case, everything was successfully restored from the system state data. Now I need to reboot. And notice it tells us when we reboot, the system state recovery will attempt to recover many system files, which may take several minutes to complete depending on the number of files that are getting replaced. The machine might reboot multiple times in the process. Please be patient and do not interrupt the reboot process. And so we're just going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and reboot, and we'll complete our system restore. Okay, and the restore is completed. So now I'm logging back into 2008 server. System state recovery operation started at 3/6/2011, 9:43 am completed successfully. I can press enter to continue. And the restoration of my system state data is now completed. And just be aware that I skipped, it took about probably 10-15 good minutes in the boot process to restore those files. So when you're restoring your server, just be patient and wait for those files to be restored in the system state restore process. 5. Performing a complete restore from a Windows recovery DVD or installation disk. Now we're going to do a full system restore using the 2008 server DVD. And the great thing about this is you don't have to actually reinstall the operating system first, although you could, and then try to restore the backup that way. It could be a big time saver if you could just pop the 2008 server DVD in the drive, boot off of it, and then do a complete system restore from a backup image. So that's the option we're going to choose. Now the first thing you need to do is go into your system BIOS or the CMOS and configure it to boot off of the CD or DVD drive. And so I've done that, and I'm going to choose this option at boot. Now it's going to boot off the 2008 server DVD instead of the hard drive. And this way, if we had catastrophic failure, maybe, what if the hard drive physically died? Mechanical damage or something, and it could not be recovered, and I had to replace it with a brand new drive. No problem. We can boot off the DVD and do a complete system restore onto the new drive that we used to replace the old damaged drive. Or what if it was a virus that wiped out, system files, corrupted my file system? There's all kinds of scenarios where this would be a useful restore option. So I'm going to choose next with my language, and I want to go down and I don't want to install, but I want to choose this option, repair your computer. And it'll go and look for, again, any previous versions of Windows that it might find. Here's Server 2008. If it didn't find that, I'd still be able to do the restore from a full image. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Next. Notice my options here. I could open a command prompt, and I could, if my boot files are infected, I could attempt to clean them or rewrite the boot sector. The master boot record. But in this case, what I want to do is a Windows Complete PC Restore. And if I have a USB drive plugged in, or in this case, a volume with a backup, it will be able to read the log file, and it sees it. And so it says, hey, do you want to use the latest available backup? I could choose that option. I could say restore a different backup, and then I could choose that here. And then I could search for a backup on the network. I could install a driver if I needed that to, maybe to be able to interface with a removable drive or something before I could load the backup. So several different options there, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to choose use the latest. And notice my options here. In this case, I can format and repartition the disks. And that's if I want to get rid of, again, if I'm worried about maybe a virus or infected data or something, I might choose that option. And that way it would completely clean everything off before, putting the backup copy back on there. And if I needed to install drivers, I could do that. And then advanced settings, restart the computer. After restoring is completed, I can uncheck that if I don't want that to happen. And automatically check and update disk era information. Again, I can uncheck that if I so chose. And then I click on next, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. And then I confirm that I want to erase all existing data. and restore the backup. And I need to select that, and it's kind of nice that they put that in there, just another caveat or a warning. I'm going to click on OK. And now Windows is restoring. 6. Backing up with a third-party tool. Imaging with Ghost. Okay, and this time I've configured our BIOS to boot off of the CD again. We're going to look at a third-party backup and recovery tool called Ghost, put out by Symantec. And I'm going to choose Continue Without Marking Drives. And just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and say yes, I'll quit. And just to show you that this is also a bootable image. In this case, what I'm accessing is the boot image itself off of the Ghost CD. Okay, so and there's several options you can pass on at the command line when you run Ghost, but one of the ones I like is the split option, and I like to split my files into 2 GB chunks, so 2,000 bytes or 2 GB. The reason is that it makes it more resilient. If you don't choose this option when you run Ghost, it'll do it as one large, humongous file. Could be 30, 40, 50 GB, who knows. But the larger the file, the harder it is to deal with. The more difficult it is to copy around from one form of media to another without getting cyclical redundancy check errors, or problems with parts of the file being damaged in transit. So I like to try to keep it small. That's just a suggestion. So I'm going to run Ghost. And if you're doing forensics, and this is an older version of Ghost, we see the copyright's 2002, it's 2003 actually, but you can, if you're doing forensics and you need to mark the drive, maybe you're making a complete image for the purpose of, crypto analysis or data analysis, you can choose that option, but for the most part, just choose Continue Without Marking Drives. This is not a forensic backup, it's a functional backup. And what I want to do is choose a partition, and I'm going to do that partition, I want to compress that partition to an image file. Just basically take a snapshot of the whole partition. So I'm going to click on OK. Notice here's my 9.5 gig partition. There's my 2008 server. So I'm going to say OK. And that was my source. Now I'm choosing the destination. For the destination, I'm going to choose this NTFS drive. And the only thing is, another weird bug in older versions of Ghost is don't end your file with a number, because it'll automatically postfix a number onto it. So if you end the file with a number, it won't be able to sequence it right on the restore process, and you'll get errors. So if you're going to do that, I would do like 2008 serve or something, or server, and then it'll postfix the number, onto the end of the file the way that it should. So I'm going to click on save. My options are fast or high. If I choose fast, it'll back it up really quick, but it won't compress it and decrease the file size. If I choose high, it'll compress it, and that may be 9.5 gig, but after compression, it may only be 4.5 gig. So I'm going to choose the high method to compress, and then proceed with partition image creation. I'm going to say yes. Okay. And it'll launch the imaging engine, and then it'll give you, sort of estimated time remaining, and you can see, the percentage complete, the megabytes per minute that are being backed up, the megabytes copied, megabytes remaining. And we're going to skip ahead in this video to the end of our backup to computer backup. Okay, and now image creation has completed successfully. The backup is complete, and so we can quit, and we now have a complete image of our 2008 server, and then later we can come back and restore it in the event of a catastrophe or a disaster. 7. Restore an image using Ghost. Okay, we're booting up Ghost again, and now we're going to restore. And again, I want to continue without marking the drives. I'm going to click on OK, local, and I'm going to do a partition from an image, in this case the image that we created. I'm going to go down and select the source image in Ghost, in this case, which is this NTFS drive data. and then select the partition, and it was a 9.5 gigabyte partition. I'm going to say OK. Now I select the destination. Okay, and the destination I want to be this partition here, and I'm going to click on OK, and then proceed with partition restore. I'm going to say yes. And it will go through the restore process. And again, notice it'll give you the percent complete, the speed in megabytes per minute, megabytes copied, megabytes remaining, time elapsed, and time remaining. And once again, we'll probably speed the video up here, so you don't have to wait the whole entire amount of time. But, you know, say maybe 12, 13 minutes, not too bad for a complete system restore. Fast forward. Okay, and we just kind of fast forwarded here. And finally clone completed successfully. And everything looks good. And notice your options, you can reset the computer or continue. And I'm going to continue, go down to the menu and quit. And I've done a complete restore. So now I can do Control Alt Delete. And then, okay, and now with our image fully restored, we're rebooting back into 2008 server. Okay. And there we have an exact mirror image copy.